Okay, so in section 6.5, we're talking about radical and exponential forms. Now, I'm only going to show you the exponential form and how to change it into a radical form. And then we'll discuss how to go backwards, but it's not really that terrible. Um, Exponential form requires a base. Now, this is our base, okay? This part right here, this is what we call our base, okay? So our base is x, and our power is a over b. Now, if you happen to have a term that we're going to call our base to a fractional power, then the top number in the fraction, the a term, becomes the power to your base. So the x gets the a power, x to the a power. And then the denominator, the b value, becomes the index to your radical. Okay? So notice where they get placed. Okay? Your denominator gets placed as an index. Okay? And your numerator gets placed as the power to the radicand, okay, the number inside of the radical. Now, there are two ways that you can write this, and a lot of people prefer the second way. So if you look, I wrote it on the bottom. I put a parenthesis around the radical, and I put the power of a on the outside of the parenthesis. More people prefer to write it this way, okay? They just think it's easier, like, to write it that way. So that's fine. That's the way the problems are going to come out on your homework, is going to be the way it looks like on the bottom, okay? So the outside power is the numerator in the fraction. The index is the denominator in the fraction, okay? And then your base, that becomes your radicand, the term inside of the radical. All right, and that's basically all you're going to do. You're not going to have to simplify anything. You're just going to rewrite it. So, here you go. Notice there's really no space in between the problems because it takes you one step. Okay, just one step. So for example number 1, write in radical form. So I'm going to take it from a base with a fractional power into a radical. Okay, so I'm just going to change it from a base with a fractional power to a radical. All right, so I'm going to write radical. Okay. Inside of the radical, I'm going to put 7a. Okay. And then I need to figure out the index. What's the index on this radical? The 3. And the outside power is a 1. So do I have to write it if it's a power of 1? Not really, right? I'm going to put it here just for the sake of the step, but then I'm going to get rid of it. So there you go. There's your answer. I don't have to do anything more than that. That's pretty easy, right? Let's go to the next one. So B, the quantity of 10k to the 3/4 power. So my fraction is 3 over 4. Okay? So I'm going to write a radical. Okay, I'm going to put the 10k, my base is going to be my radicand, my value inside. Okay, what's my index? A 4. And what is my power? A 3. And I'm done. Now some people ask me, can I rewrite it like this? I don't really like to write the parentheses inside. Can I just do it like that? And yes, that's perfectly fine. Okay, if you want to write it like that, that's okay. I prefer to leave it in parentheses because the reason why I like to write it in parentheses is if I want to put the power on the inside, this would be wrong because the power of 3 should apply to the 10 and the k. Right now it's only applying to the k. But if I do this, now it's right. It's applying to both. So that's why I prefer just to leave it in a parenthesis. I mean, it doesn't hurt anybody to do that. It's just, I leave it in parentheses on purpose. But this would be the correct answer. And so the other one is correct as well, whichever one you prefer. Okay? So that's pretty easy. Now let's go backwards. Let's go from given a radical to rewriting it as a fraction. By the way, I'll erase this. That way, for note purposes, I don't want people to think like that the first answer was wrong. So here we go. Example number 2. Write it in exponential form. So I want you to give me the answer of a term to a fractional power. Okay? So write in exponential form. I did 3 examples for this one. I was only supposed to do 2, but I did 3 of them because on the first one I mixed up my index and my power and I wrote them backwards at first, and then I'm like, oh wait, I did it wrong. I caught it right away, but then I'm like, you know what? We'll do 2 more just in case I mixed anybody up. We'll just try to wash that out, right? So I ended up doing another one extra. All right, here we go. For part A, I have the cubed root of 4v to the 4th power. Okay, the cubed root of 4v to the 4th power. So I'm going to write 4v like this. Okay, and then I have a fraction. What's the numerator on my fraction? The top number. The 4. Yeah, the 4. The index goes on the bottom. So 4/3. That's it. 4v to the 4/3. Okay? I know as teachers we're not supposed to say this stuff is easy, but like this stuff is easy. And they always say like, well, there's always going to be somebody who's struggling. And I'm like, I think I can fix it. If somebody's struggling, I can go and help them. I think I can fix it pretty quick. Because this one doesn't require a lot of tricky steps. So look at this next one. The square root of m to the 3rd power. Now this one's kind of, well, I don't want to say tricky, but they're kind of hiding something from you. So there's the m. Okay? And let me write my fraction here. What number do I put on top?
1. 3.
A 3. Remember, the power goes on top. What's the index?
1.
A 2. Right? If there's no index, it has to be a 2. Right? Everything else has an index. A cubed, a 4th, a 5th. There is no 1th root. 1 does not exist. No index of 1. But if it's an index of 2, they don't write it. Okay? So it would be a 3/2. So that one's I did on purpose because that one's a little tricky. So make sure we kind of do one of those. And then this next one I did because it's also a little tricky. So the cubed root of 7x. I'm going to write 7x in parentheses. I'm going to write my fraction. Okay, think about this. What number goes on top?
1.
A 1. Because do you see there's no parenthesis there, right? But if there was, it would have to be a 1. That's why they didn't write it, because it's a power of 1. So they're like, oh, I don't need it. So they just didn't write it. And what number do I put on the bottom? The 3. Okay? And that's it. This is what your homework is for today.